If you haven't heard of Baku 2015, the first edition of a new sporting event called the European Games, it's not for want of trying on behalf of the organisers.
These games are happening in a context of extreme repression in the country. Human rights lawyers, journalists, bloggers, political opponents are being harassed, intimidated, arrested and locked up just because they're standing up and they're criticising the government.
The Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev hopes this sporting event will put his country at the heart of the sporting landscape. The Baku Games, envisaged by the European Olympic Committees as a counterpoint to the popular Pan-Asian Games and Pan-American Games, is just the start for Aliyev.
Next year, Formula One will be going to the country. In 2020, Azerbaijan will host 4 games of the European Football Championships. They bid twice for the Olympics already.
But there is another side to Azerbaijan's unprecedented vault onto the world sporting stage that the Aliyevs are rather less keen to talk about.
Azerbaijan is pretty much left without any independent voices. Government critics, human rights defenders, journalists, bloggers in Azerbaijan have either been incarcerated or they have left the country, or the ones who actually remain in Azerbaijan are scared and they decide to keep a low profile.
Among those targeted are those who've sought to help those most affected. In December, the authorities raided the offices of Radio Free Europe, one of the last remaining independent media voices in the country. Weeks prior to that, they'd arrested Khadija Ismailova.
Khadija Ismailova is an extremely brave Azerbaijani journalist. She decided to stay in Azerbaijan in order to fight for justice in Azerbaijan. Since the authorities could not stop her from her investigative journalism, they eventually decided to throw her behind bars.
She remains in prison on pre-trial detention and faces a sentence of up to 12 years. Her mother Elmira is deeply worried.
Narahatam, yani çölde olsa ben elə bilirəm ki, yani bu həbsxanada ona heç nə eləyə bilməzlər. Yəni həbsxanada yani bu üz-üzədir. Amma çöldə olsaydı olanda çox qorxurdum. Yəni qorxurdum ki, uşağımı yani öldürə bilərlər. Elmarı öldürən kimi bunu da öldürə bilərlər. Bundan qorxurdum.
And there are other people like Khadija Ismailova in Azerbaijan.
Intikam Aliyev is a human rights lawyer who's taken over 300 cases to the European Court of Human Rights. Last year, he too was sentenced on pre-trial detention, and in April, he was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison on what are widely agreed to be trumped-up charges. Intikam Aliyev's son, Nesmin, is deeply concerned for his father's health.
He's in jail because he was defending people who was facing repression, who was facing right abuses. Government considers defending human rights as a crime in this country, and we were ready for his arrest. Of course, we miss him, and people who know him still miss him, and we are worried about his condition, his health. When we meet him in prison, he keeps repeating that he is carrying on his struggle for us to live in better country, even in better world. I hope that situation will change. I strongly hope that he and his friends, colleagues, other innocent people in jail will be released soon, and justice will win.
Amnesty International has definitively identified at least 20 prisoners of conscience, and a list compiled by activists within the country puts the number of political prisoners at more than 80.
The Azeri government is trying to create a criticism-free zone for the upcoming European Games to make sure that the Games take place without any disturbances.
It wants to use the international media attention that comes with an international sports event like this to attract investment, to attract tourism.
Seb Coe, who's chairman of the BOA, will fly in for the opening ceremony, and there will be representation from the British government. But while the German Olympic Committee have issued a strong statement condemning the human rights situation, there's been nothing yet from Britain and some of the other competing countries. NGOs such as Amnesty International would like to see them do more.
When the European Olympic Committees have been challenged over their unwillingness to raise these issues with the President of Azerbaijan, they have given the excuse that Azerbaijan's a young country, democracy takes a long time. That's absolutely no excuse for locking up journalists, locking up human rights lawyers, locking up anybody who criticises or challenges the government.
Many would like to maintain the mantra that sport and politics shouldn't mix, but when sport is being used for expressly political purposes, it's hard to see how that can hold.
If the situation in Azerbaijan carries on as it is at the moment, it's very difficult to see how there's going to be a positive, lasting legacy of these games.
As a racing fan, I love Le Mans. It's unique on its own. It's a standalone event. It's a mecca for motorsport in a way.